Hi, everybody. I'm Andrea Bailey. I'm the Elementary Language Arts Coordinator. I thought that we could talk about the long read today. We've been getting lots of questions about the long read, and so I just wanted to clear up a few things for everyone. So, first of all, if you'd like to get to the Teaching Pal in the Into Reading digital platform, the first thing that you're going to do, of course, is go through the portal. And then if you go to table of contents and select the module that you're going to be in, today I'm going to take us to module 6 in 3rd grade. Then you select the audience, which is the teacher, and then you select which component you want, which we're going to be looking at the Teaching Pal. All of that will get you to the right spot. And then you just click on it and select open. I've already opened it and I'm in another tab. So here we go. If I want to see that, I can just project the selection, or if I'm in Teaching Pal and I want to project the questions as well, I can do that by clicking on this little hat. If I'm just looking for my computer, I still would click on the hat to be able to see the Teaching Pal questions. So let's talk about the Teaching Pal and talk about what aspects of the long read would I be using. Of course, before you get to the actual reading part, you're going to set up the lesson with your mini lesson. And this particular mini lesson is about summarizing. And I know that's not anywhere here. We've already done that work. And then we would be getting into the piece of text. The next thing that we would want to do is to introduce the piece of text itself. Now, you'll think about all of the information here and really read it to see if this is something that's important for you to introduce and to set up before you start reading. Or if you think that, some of the pages, the think alouds really help kids understand this. I think for this piece of text, I would want to go ahead and prepare kids before we start reading, because this is a narrative nonfiction. So there are aspects of this. This is told in a narrative way, but it's in a game show format. And along the way, kids are going to be learning some factual information about dragonflies and their life cycle. I definitely would want to set up kids thinking while I was before we started reading. The other thing that you can do when you're in the introduce the text is to talk about the author, and that might be something that you would want to skip. The display and engage, meet the author and illustrator. You absolutely you can do that, but if you're trying to save on time, that might be some place where you could. There'll be some authors that you want to feature, and you would do this from time to time, but not every single selection that you read. The next thing is the critical vocabulary. Just so you know, the critical vocabulary, they are in the pieces of text. They're defined at the bottom. They're highlighted in the text that kids are reading. And the definitions that are underneath are kind of in the bottom of each page that the critical vocabulary appears on. It's in kid-friendly language. And so that's why what we decided to do is we decided that we would not spend time focusing in on the definitions and do a big vocabulary lesson, but we would want kids to encounter those words as they're reading and then discuss them or think about them while they're reading. So you'll see that as part of what kids are doing while they're reading. All right, then you would start kids on their way. And so we would get to the piece of text. What you're going to see on the first couple of pages is that there's going to be a place where you can think aloud. Remember, we're doing the blue thinking aloud sticky notes that are in our Teaching Pal. So this little section right here is on the first couple of pages. So what I would do is I would read the text aloud to my students. We would read it together, and then I would do the think aloud. This is on every piece of text. There's a couple of pages, and then there's a think aloud. And so this is a way for you to begin helping them think about the piece of text. setting up that thinking for the entire piece of text. Good evening, larvae, nymphs, and insects. This is Bob the Beetle welcoming you to another episode of This Is Your Life Cycle, the show that follows the life cycle of everybody's favorite class of animals, the insects. Okay, so would read that paragraph and then come over and talk about this selection is a little bit different because it has um, story elements and information. And the way this story is told, the way this piece of text is set up, is it's in the format of a game show. And Bob the Beetle, right here, he's the host of the show. So you would do this think aloud with kids before you set them off to read on their own. And then you, as the teacher, are going to scan the piece of text before you give this to kids. So this is something that you do in the planning stage. You look and you see, when is the next time that kids are thinking aloud, and or that there's a think aloud sticky note, and that is on page 25. And that page looks like this. And I'm going to scroll down to that sticky note where there's thinking aloud. See this right here? This is for page 25. So you can tell kids, I'm going to let you read. You're going to read pages 22, 23, 24, and 25 on your own. And then we're going to come back together and we're going to talk about what we've read so far. Because this particular think aloud has to do with the lesson, the skill of summarizing, which you've already done the mini lesson on. So you want to stop and you want to think aloud about that mini lesson, about that skill, because that's your mini lesson. That's your big idea, your big learn for this piece of text. Okay, so you've asked kids to read the text on their own. Of course, there'll be kids who can't access the piece of text. And so what we're going to do is we're going to pair them up, or we're going to put them in small groups across the year. We're going to nudge kids forward. We want more kids reading independently. And so the next week we might say, hey, you two pair kids, y'all can read on your own. Try to do it on your own. So you're going to set that up while you are, that's again, before you get to this actual reading, you're going to have that routine in place where kids know where they go as soon as it's time to read on their own. So kids start to read on their own, and then all of a sudden you get to page 25. Most of your kids are on page 25, and you do this think aloud. Then, again, in the planning time, you have scanned until you find the next think aloud, which is on page 29. So after you finish this think aloud, that was on page 25, you're going to have kids read until they get to the next think aloud, which goes on page 29. And have kids read until they get to that, and then you're going to think aloud. Okay, you're going to do the think aloud with them. Oh, look, here's one of those words. See how it's highlighted and underlined? And it's a kid-friendly definition. It's awesome. Okay, so the next thing you're going to do is you're just going to follow that across the piece of text. Let kids read on their own, read in pairs, read in small groups. Kids do the reading. You don't read the piece of text except for maybe the first couple of pages, but you stop kids at the think aloud places and you think aloud with them. You guys work together to make meaning of the piece of text. And so that's kind of how you do. And then at the very end, step 3 is usually either a discussion or something that kids will be writing or responding to the text. And, that response to text sometimes is going to end up going over into the station time. You also could use You could have kids write answers to questions along the way instead of stopping and thinking aloud every time. Or you could have kids put this in a pear deck and have kids write or type their answers along the way. Any of those ways would be great. This is how you handle the long read.